Hey everybody, it's Kirk, and today I want to do a very short video to focus in on one issue and one issue only. And that is to tell folks that federal employment law is not self-enforcing. And I really shouldn't limit this to federal employment law, it's any employment law, is not self-enforcing. And that if the government, your federal agency, if you're a federal employee, is violating your rights under the law, for example, with an EEO discrimination statute, that there is going to be no enforcement of your rights without certain actions. So when I say it's not self-enforcing, I mean if the agency were to violate your rights, there's going to be no one like a judge that suddenly shows up and says, agency, you are in violation of such and such a law, you owe this person XYZ, whatever the case is. That is not the way our legal system works in the U.S., and that's not the way EEO laws work in the U.S. for federal employees either. So folks will often say to me, Kirk, they violated my rights and I want to get some type of relief right now. I get this a lot. People want to have the matter addressed right at that moment in time. And I have to be the bearer of bad news, that these laws are not self-enforcing and that there's a process, and it's a long process, that must be entered into to hopefully seek relief at the end of that long process. To kind of make this a little more real to you so you can understand what I'm saying, let's take an example from an EEO case that I recently handled. In that case, we had a gentleman who was denied an opportunity, we'll call it, at work because he is a male. And he was actually told by a supervisor, you cannot do this because you're a male. This is reserved solely for females. When the supervisor spoke those words, was that a violation of federal law? Yes, it's a violation of Title VII that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. However, nothing happened at that moment in time. What had to follow up was my client had to then seek enforcement of his rights because they weren't self-enforcing. Now for him, and for the folks that I work with on the EEO side, what that looks like is filing an EEO against the agency, describing how the agency violated the law, specifically which law that they violated, then moving that EEO through the counseling stage, through what is called the formal stage, and then moving it into investigation. And that process, by regulation, is going to take up to 180 days. It can take more in certain circumstances, but it is not a quick process. So at the end of that investigative process, is there enforcement? There is not enforcement, believe it or not. The only way to get technically to enforcement is to then take that EEO and request that it be moved from the agency to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, and have it assigned to a judge there, which is what happened for him, and then follow that process through until there's a ruling. Now, for some of these, when you get done with the EEO investigation, you may need to take them to the Merit System Protection Board, the MSPB, but your EEO claims will still be there. Not like you lose those claims. You just go to the MSPB, and potentially later you go back to the EEOC. It just kind of depends on the circumstance. But at the end of that investigative process, the most important thing to remember is you will then proceed to a judge, whether it's EEOC or MSPB, most times to the EEOC. And then after the proceedings before the the EEOC or MSPB, if you convince the judge that they have violated your rights, the agency has, then you would be entitled to whatever relief the law allows. So, for example, there may be damages or attorney's fees. There may be, if you're after a promotion or something like that, then you can get whatever the law says you're entitled to. That just happened to my client. He received an order from the judge, initially finding his favor. We've got to go through a couple more steps to kind of see where this ultimately is going to go. but there has been a finding in his favor, and I intend to share that decision with you all a little bit later on, at least in part of it, so that we can talk about that and what it means for other folks who are facing the same kind of situation that he was. But I thought that was a great example where we have a situation where the supervisor is saying, this is happening to you because of your sex. In this case, it was male, could have been female, whatever, and use that to deny the opportunity to my client. Clearly a violation of Title VII, but it was not self-enforcing, meaning that had he not chosen to pursue this, met all the requirements and all the deadlines for getting things done, he would have had a violation that he would never have been able to get rectified. It would never have been a situation where he could have gotten the justice that he deserves had he not taken the time to jump through the hoops to get himself to the hearing and then retain me to help him with this. So very important to remember that these are not self-enforcing. You're going to have to take action to enforce your rights when a federal agency violates them. And remember, we'll talk about this in later cases as well, that there are very specific deadlines for getting these things started. The EEO process, for example, the EEOC hearing process or the MSPB hearing process. And you've got to meet all of those to make sure that your rights ultimately be enforced. So I hope this was helpful for you, and thank you all for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.